Chris and Dr. Ray, I want you to do something. I want you to go find your mom or your dad, and they likely have an imprint of your foot when you were a baby, okay? That is what your natural foot should look like. It should stay the same, just grow larger as we age. And look at that compared to what your foot looks like right now, because the shoe wear that you've been wearing has been constantly molding your foot. So it's not just a matter of finding the right size for your foot right now, but finding the right size that's going to allow your foot to return once we actually start using it, because the shape of your foot will change. I know you know this for personally as well as I, because we've been through this process. Let's talk about shoe sizing. How do we find the right shoe?
Yeah, you bet. Most of us are conditioned to pull a shoe off the rack at the shoe store and look for the number and the letter. Usually it's punched in the tongue of the shoe, it might be punched in the side of the shoe. A very fundamental principle that everybody wants to understand is the number and the letter that's punched into the shoe is based on the Brannock device. Now the Brannock device is that metal device you see when you go into the shoe store. It was designed in Syracuse, New York in 1927. What athletes want to know, though, is that that Brannock system is designed for fitting fashion footwear.
Designed for fitting fashion footwear.
So we're not talking today about fashion. Nobody watching this video is probably going to want to look their best going down the runway. We're talking about how do we get the most out of our body. So immediately, if you're looking at the number and letters stamped in the tongue of the shoe, you've got to understand that that's based on a fashion system. For that reason, we would recommend we completely abandon that system. If you're going to be an athlete,
it's a little hard though, because that's all you have to go by, right?
Well, it was until recently. We've got a couple tricks that Chris and I are going to teach you today. Most athletic shoes will have what this particular shoe has, which is called either an insole or a sock liner. If you can remove this out of the shoe while you're in the store and stand on this, you're going to notice several things. You're going to notice that the number and the letter that's punched in the tongue of the shoe is not universal. It's brand specific. So Nike is going to be different from an Adidas, going to be different from a Saucony. So a much better way of going about it is to take the information that Chris just shared, which is we're supposed to be widest at the ends of the toes, not at the ball. Second thing is to pull this out of the shoe in the shoe store and stand on it. Now we can see where this person's toes have been while they've been working out in this shoe, and their foot has not been widest at the ball, or at the ends of the toes rather. It has been widest at the ball, and the toes have been pinched narrower. So quite frankly, don't pay attention to numbers and letters, don't pay attention to where it's made, what it's made for. We want to be more concerned about how your particular foot sits in relationship to the sock liner. Now, Chris made a very valuable point a moment ago that many people aren't familiar with, which is by the time you develop a foot problem, your footwear has changed the shape of your foot and not in a good way. So for that reason, many of us who are concerned about strengthening our feet and rehabbing our feet back to natural alignment will be using some form of a toe separator. So if some of you in the audience plan to use some form of a toe separator, take this with you to the store before before you stand on your sock liner. We've been studying
this. And
then
make sure your foot fits in the shoe as well with it on.
Absolutely right. Good point Chris makes. And if it doesn't fit in the shoe with it on, a simple trick is to remove the sock liner, provided you've got a soft, cushy surface inside that'll provide a lot more volume. So those are some helpful tricks and tips for you guys to understand what natural foot anatomy is supposed to be like. We're going to talk about how do we help you guys achieve that.
Yeah. We can look at the very distinct difference, and obviously these are different sizes, but you can see this toe area is significantly different with this barefoot shoe right here. So really important thing to understand. And as a strength athlete, it becomes even more so, because when we want to look at splaying that toe box, or splaying that spread of all those metatarsals, okay, under load, you're actually going to be at your widest to take full advantage of that. I mean, think about getting under a bar and squatting 400 pounds, or deadlifting. You're going to get way more of that splay. So it's really important to understand that in that environment, you actually want a wider than normal toe box if you're going to take advantage of that in retooling and strengthening the foot to optimize your results long term. And again, this is a process. Refer back to our video where we talked about strengthening the foot, and I compare it to being in a wheelchair for a duration of time. You can't just get out of that and start running or squatting at those levels. We need to acclimate and build resilience and do this over time. So you want to take steps in that process.
You bet.